The 12 Days of Christmas features a lot of birds. Let's run them down. 7 swans a-swimming, 6 geese a-laying, 5 golden rings, okay, not birds, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. But in 2025, what's life like for these birds? On this episode of the Oxford Sparks Big Questions podcast, we're asking, what happened to the birds in the 12 Days of Christmas? Season's greetings. I'm Emily Elias, and this is the show where we seek out the brightest minds at the University of Oxford, and we ask them the big questions. And for this one, we have found a researcher who loves some festive fowl.
Okay, I'm Andy Gosler. I'm head of the Institute of Human Sciences at the University of Oxford, but I'm also professor of ethno-ornithology, as far as we know, the only one in the world.
Ethno-ornithology is a mouthful. What the heck is it?
Yes, so the ethno is like ethnobotany, like ethnography. It's sort of implying anthropology. And the ornithology, of course, is the study of birds. So it is the study of the relationships between birds and people.
Wow. So you've got a lot on your plate. And so obviously for Christmas, we decided to burden you with more. And, and we were thinking,
Bless you.
we were thinking about the 12 Days of Christmas. It's got a ton of birds in it. You obviously came to mind. So we've got 7 swans, 6 geese, 4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, a partridge in a pear tree. Why is this song so bird-centric?
Well, the simple answer is that nobody has the faintest idea. And when you invited me to have this conversation, of course, I went and Googled the 12 Days because I know the song. Everyone knows the song. It's a lovely sort of Christmas carol. And tried to find out something about its history. It seems to have been first written down in the 18th century. The words have changed quite a bit. And for me, I might as well make a suggestion as to why it's sort of bird heavy, because nobody can prove me wrong, and nobody seems to have a better answer. It's just that birds are extremely significant for people, and with the birds in question are quite interesting because you've got a kind of combination of, there's some wild species like turtle dove, which incidentally would never be in the British Isles in the winter at Christmas because it's a migrant, breeds here, migrates to West Africa for the winter. So you've got some wild species and you've got some domesticated, like the geese, one presumes.
But at the 18th century, when this was sort of coming into vogue, shall we say, these were sort of like your key British birds that people really sort of like identified with culturally, or at least had a good sort of knowledge of?
They would have a knowledge of them, but they wouldn't necessarily be their most salient birds. The most iconic bird today, and I think probably in the 18th century as well, is the robin. You know, just a few years ago, it was realized that we didn't have a national bird. Britain seemed to be unique in not having a national bird. And so in good sort of democratic fashion, took a vote on it, and everyone said, well, it's the robin, isn't it? Because everyone had thought the robin was our national bird anyway. So, so it's a rather odd collection of birds in the song. I just want to say something about the partridge in the pear tree, because there's a lot of speculation, which you can find on Wikipedia, for example, about what this, and it just struck me a few years ago that maybe this is a pun, because partridge in French is perdrix.
It's a little play on words.
Yeah, I think it's a pun, actually. And there's a lot of references to French and to French and to the French, the French hens, for example. And there was a tendency with unusual birds to call them a French something or other.
And so we just kind of lazily called it French. It's different. French.
French, it's different. It's foreign. It meant it's a foreign thing. Yeah. It's not quite right how it should be.
Okay, so 18th century, long time ago. What kind of state are these birds in currently in 2025 in the UK? Can we maybe start with, like, the partridges, the turtle doves, the calling birds? Where are they at?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's all sort of doom and gloom. It's it's pretty miserable.
So what's going on with the gray partridges?
Um, they're fairly desperate and used to be very, very common. So I am the age I am. But when I was a kid, I grew up in West London, and I remember seeing in fields in London coveys of partridges. So a flock of partridges is known as a covey. Coveys of partridge of a grey partridge of 30 birds or more. You know, I can go a whole year these days without being able to see a grey partridge.
I mean, I don't wanna draw a drastic contradiction to our ages, but I don't think I've ever seen a partridge in a park in London.
No, well, exactly. Exactly, but, you know, in the 1970s, yeah, the sort of official line is that there's no competition between red-lipped partridge and grey partridge, but it is interesting that the decline in grey partridge has gone along with this increase in redlegs, which are now kind of everywhere, so I'm not sure I quite believe that. There may be other things going on in our countryside, like the loss of insects that the partridges depend on.
And then what's going on with the turtle doves?
Yeah, turtle dove. A lot of these changes are due to agricultural change. So from the early 1970s, the real intensification of agriculture. It does go along with us joining the what was then called the European Common Market and the Common Agricultural Policy, which was a pretty disastrous one sort of policy for the whole of Western Europe, or at least all member states. But that went along with the great industrialization of farming, pesticides, herbicides, less spilt grain in farmyards that the sparrows depended on, that sort of thing. And, you know, I'm not saying that that was due to joining Europe, because I'm sure that would have happened anyway, but it had pretty disastrous consequences for a lot of our birds. So that's the story for the turtle dove. But also they're overhunted in North Africa, so our poor turtle doves get hit both ways.
The calling bird?
Calling birds or collie birds, depending on which version of the song. But the collie birds are blackbirds. That was an old name for blackbird, which incidentally, if people were desperate in the winter, it wasn't uncommon for people to eat blackbirds. Um, Blackbirds now, so we have a kind of traffic light system for the conservation status of birds in the UK, and most of these things are either red listed, so serious conservation action needed, or amber listed. And I'm not quite sure where blackbird is this week. It has been amber. It might actually be red because there's a new virus that they're suffering from. So we're a bit anxious about blackbirds.
You're not joking. This is really sounding very doom and gloom for the 12 Days of Christmas birds.
It's really serious. What comes after the calling birds? So
We got hens.
oh, hens. Okay. Well, the French hens are obviously domesticated, so moving swiftly on. Then you've got 5 gold rings, okay, and then 6 geese a laying, I think,
Yep.
which are probably also domesticated. But there are wild geese in this country. Most of them come here from the winter, so from places like Svalbard. But somewhere around 1960, someone thought it might be quite fun to have Canada geese in this country, and it introduced them either by accident or on purpose. I think on purpose, and we are now knee deep in Canada geese, and they're quite aggressive, and it does have some consequences for other species. So
They're invasive.
yeah,
Invasive doesn't sound good.
it's not great. And we used to see more white-fronted geese, for example, in the south in the winter, and I wonder whether having all these Canada geese might be a bit of a problem.
So the final bird then would be our swans a-swimmin'. Is there bad news for the swans?
No, actually. Whoa. Well, except for avian influenza, which is a problem for a lot of water birds.
Uh,
I think just at the moment we're not allowed to handle any wildfowl because of the risk.
so we've got the doom and gloom forecast where it's not looking super great for a lot of our birds. Do you have a pitch for some birds in 2025 that are thriving that would help in an updated 12 Days of Christmas?
So we're keeping the partridge in the pear tree. We're keeping the 2 turtle doves. I want 3 red kites because they are the greatest conservation success story of the 20th and now 21st century. I'd have 4 Searle buntings because they've been massively reduced, but they are showing signs of recovery, as are corn buntings and yellowhammers, which have also declined because of agricultural change. 5 corn crakes. We normally say corncrake, but that is an old name for it is a landrail. They used to be incredibly common across the UK, keeping people awake at night with their irritating call. But now they're just breeding in the Hebrides in Scotland, but there's a reintroduction program in Norfolk. And all those things suggest that changes in farming are getting better for the farmland birds. So we keep our fingers crossed there. I'd have 6 lapwings laying as the lapwings sort of symbolic of all the lowland wet meadow species of wader species that breed that historically were quite common. So lapwing, snipe, redshank, curlew especially, all of which were quite common around Oxford and wet meadows when I moved here a bit over 40 years ago, and have declined massively. So we hope for change there, with the improvements in farming.
Sending a Christmas miracle out to them.
Exactly. And then 7 egrets walking. But you think of it as different species rather than just the marching along. We used to just have 2 or 3 species. So there was the grey heron, bittern if you were lucky enough to see one at just a few sites in the country. Now you can see bittern regularly at many sites. And we've added little egret, great white egret, cattle egret, all breeding in this country. Glossy ibis, spoonbill is more common, and now white stork. And actually common crane, unrelated to them, but a similar kind of thing, a big thing with long legs, breeding for the first time in hundreds of years.
There's like so many birds. There's too many birds.
And that's because of climate change. I should say it's not just the farming practices and land management. It's because of climate change that all these continental species like cattle egret, I mean, never would have thought 20 years ago even that we'd have cattle egret breeding here in huge numbers. It's quite astonishing.
Go egrets. Can I ask you then, would you mind ever so much to give me a rendition of all of your new birds?
Okay. So we've come down from 12. So 7 egrets walking, 6 lapwings laying, 5 corn crakes, 4 Searle buntings, 3 red kites, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Oh my goodness. My holiday spirit is bubbling over.
Now everyone knows what a dreadful voice I have.
Thank you for being such a good sport.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You got to have fun at Christmas, haven't you?
This podcast was brought to you by Oxford Sparks from the University of Oxford, with music by John Lyons and a special thanks to Professor Andrew Gosler. Tell us what you think about this podcast or send us some festive wishes, whatever you decide. We are on the internet at Oxford Sparks, or you can go to our website, oxfordsparks.ox.ac.uk. I'm Emily Elias. Bye for now.